Welcome to Making It Last, where we share ideas to help families tackle major issues. I'm your host, Regina DeMeo, and with me today is one of my friends, Heather Hostetter, who's been an attorney here for over 18 years. Thanks so much for being here, Heather.
Sure, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, you're very active in the Women's Bar Association.
Yes, I am.
And how long have you been part of the Women's Bar Association?
Since 2000. I became an attorney in 1995, but when I came to Montgomery County to practice law from Anne Arundel County, that's when I joined the Women's Bar.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how long has the Women's Bar Association of Maryland been around?
Actually, it's really interesting. It's been in existence since 1929, and
Wow.
It was created because at that time women couldn't belong to the Maryland Bar Association. So they created their own bar association in order to have the ability to exchange ideas and promote themselves as attorneys. We are actually, sadly, the last bar association to admit women, and that was in 1946, like the general bar association.
Oh, wow.
So it was in existence really almost 20 years before women could join the regular bar association.
That's amazing. So what would you say is some of the benefits that you got from your membership with the Women's Bar?
So one of them that was definitely true for me personally was it's an opportunity to have a leadership role. So I was the president of our local chapter in 2006, 2007. But I think that's been true for lots of young women who came before me and have come after me. It's an opportunity to have a leadership role that then you can use to get a leadership role in other organizations and have people know you as someone who can be depended upon. I think one of the other great things about it is the mentoring by other female attorneys. One of the things that I did during my year that I thought was really helpful was we had a series of events in which we talked about if you want to become a judge. And we had a panel of female judges talking about what they had to do.
Okay.
Successful women in private firms, successful women in legal positions in the public sector. What did they do to get where they are? Because
you need a roadmap.
You need a roadmap,
yeah.
Right? And you may not do it the way somebody else did it, but it's helpful to know how somebody else did it, someone who did it successfully. So I think having that opportunity and a designated time on a regular basis to have that conversation is really helpful, particularly because we know that so many women lawyers might see other associates like them at their firm, but they don't see that many partners who are women. So it's an opportunity for them to access other women who are ahead of them, right? To get that information that we need to understand how to keep moving ahead.
I remember one of the things that I thought was interesting was when I became pregnant, right? So up until that point, I was hanging with the big boys. I didn't really see any difference between me and the guys. But when I got pregnant, all of a sudden, it was my friends through the Women's Bar Association that rallied. And they're like, okay, don't wait till the last minute to negotiate a flexible schedule. They lent me their professional clothes because they knew it was going to be super expensive to buy suits, right?
Exactly right.
And, they were so helpful in saying all these little pieces of advice that I guess we don't really talk about publicly.
No, it's absolutely right. And the other thing that I think it does that is really great is that it promotes the achievements of its members. And I think that there's been a lot of things written about currently. I think we might speak about it later, in that women aren't as good at promoting themselves. Right? And we know that promoting your achievements is part of how people understand who you are and your competencies. So to have an organization that fulfills that for you and is done by other women, I think is hugely important.
No, absolutely. Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's very well known that we are not usually very good at self-promoting.
Yep.
Or when we do it, it's considered self-promoting.
Exactly.
Right? So it's much better for us if somebody else says, "Oh, Heather, you did a great job," right?
Exactly. A surrogate.
Right.
And if, in effect, the Women's Bar becomes a surrogate, surrogate speakers for the achievements of the other women. The other thing is, sort of the last point I want to make is it has been incredibly influential in terms of affecting the place of women in the legal profession in this state. I mean, between 1989 and 2003, it's 300% more women judges on the bench.
Wow.
300% more. I mean,
that's amazing.
That's amazing. And in 1995, due to the efforts of the Women's Bar Organization, we got women on every single nominating commission in the state. So they're commissions that create the list for the judge to pick from. And there weren't women on all of those commissions until that point. So really important. So I mean, also, and anybody who's in the Women's Bar Organization can serve on those judicial selection committees. So what a great opportunity for a young lawyer, right? As well as lawyers who've been in the practice for, even longer than you and I have, right? To have an opportunity to have some input to affect, who's going to be on the bench for a minimum of 15 years.
Yeah. Do you think guys get the relevance of the Women's Bar Association?
I was thinking about that. I think they get it to the point that I see a lot of men at the Women's Bar Association events. So if they don't think we're important, I'm not sure why they're coming.
Right.
So those are always attended by men. And the other thing I'm going to say is one of the things that I do as part of the Women's Bar Association is to be on the Judicial Selections Committee. And everybody who wants to become a judge goes for that interview. It's an option in our jurisdiction if you want to interview with all these specialty groups.
Okay.
And then have that specialty group report back to these nominating commissions what you think of them, right? You give them a grade, in essence. And it's frowned upon if you don't go to all those specialty groups, including the Women's Bar Association.
So men and women have to.
Men and women have to do it. And the Women's Bar Association also has a policy of you can't belong to any group that discriminates on the basis of race or gender or sexual orientation or religion. So we've also had people who have previously come through our organization who might have been the member of something that they shouldn't have been per or at least our view.
Right.
And so then they come back through. They drop out of those groups and come back through.
Interesting.
In order to get the approval of the Women's Bar. So I think that's been, I think that's very influential, and I think it's important. And I think men as well as women recognize that it's still a necessity.
Yeah, I think actually men, my experience is that they do get it, but I think our generation didn't at first, like we're both Gen Xers, so we both grew up with Title IX, which means we had equal access to everything, sports and anything academically. So for the longest time, we're graduating at the same rates as men from law schools, medical schools, everything. I just was so naive. I thought, we're totally equal. And it's not until you get out into the real world and you start seeing all these women who, wind up not continuing with the professions, and you're like, what's going on? I mean, at this point in our career, it's really hard and disheartening to see that only 15% of female, lawyers become equity partners. 15%, I mean, it's not a lot. And if you're a minority female, it's less than 4%.
Yep, it's totally true. I mean, now we see that there are equal number, if not more, women graduating from law school.
Right.
And, those statistics that you just mentioned, 45% of large firms, the associates are women. But to see that then winnowed down to 15% become partner is really something that we have to pay attention to. But I also think, in thinking about this today and realizing, 1989 to 2003 to see that jump in the number of women judges. I mean, 1989 is when we were graduating from high school, right? I mean, where certainly I had the idea that I could be anything I wanted to be, right? And be successful at it, but not a lot of role models. And you do still see, I do not think of myself as a trailblazer, right? But when I was first a public defender, that's what I did. My line of work before I was a divorce attorney, I was the first woman lawyer to get a job in the jail.
Are you serious?
Yep. And, I showed up the first day. I was 24 years old. I cannot even imagine what a baby I looked like. And the warden looked me up and down, and he was like, this is not going to work. I was like, well, going to have to make it work. And he said, could you wear pants? I said, well, I can't wear pants in court because at that time, really.
Oh, right, there were rules about that.
When we first started practicing, we couldn't wear a pantsuit to court or the judge would say something. Right? And so, I sort of teasingly said to him, I could wear a paper bag over my face. I think they're going to know I'm a girl. It's going to be fine, right? But really, while 18 years now seems like a long time to me, it's really not. And when you think about, right? Never had a woman work in the jail before. No big deal.
Yeah, well, I remember when I was about to graduate from law school, and I got married that same year, and I had the senior partner where I was working say to me, well, now that you're getting married, don't you think you may want to stay home and just focus on creating a family? And I just remember looking at him going, are you crazy? I just spent all this time and money to get my degree. So, no, I think I'm going to try and use it for a few years.
Exactly. Well, and also just the idea that his supposition behind that would be that not only would you immediately start having children, but then you would stop working.
Right.
Right? Right. I mean, it's interesting. Like, I think you would find that not many people would even think to say that now.
No, not now.
No, I'm not sure that doesn't still cross people's minds. And in fact, I mean, when we look at sort of why we're not seeing women become partners, I mean, we're really losing women at childbearing time.
Yeah. Well, so this brings up another question I have for you, which do you think that firms now, in light of all of the information we have, and you can't deny the brain drain going on at the higher levels, do you think that firms are sort of reassessing what they can do to make it a more hospitable environment for women?
Well, I think two things that are going on that don't have to do directly with women, but are going to benefit women. So one is that you and I aren't the new generation anymore, right? So the millennials have come along, and millennials, men and women, they want more work-life balance, right? All the research on that has been they don't want to kill themselves the way that we used to kill ourselves, which is just what was required to be a part of a big firm. So frankly, I think part of what's going to change that is the fact that men also want to go home at 6 and coach soccer and put kids to bed and read books. And that, it's not just going to be a woman's issue. It never was, but now I think it is being framed more accurately as an everybody issue, a parent issue. I think the other thing that's going to benefit us is one of the positives of a tough economy over the last decade is that the open pocketbook by individuals and corporations for legal fees, that day is over, right? Even businesses have become better consumers about what they want to pay for legal services, and they expect excellent legal service that is exactly what they need when they need it and not overblown. And I think that also is going to affect it, because when it's an open checkbook, that's what leads to those crazy hours, right?
That's a great point. I hadn't really thought about that.
So I think both of those things will be factors. And really then the last one is I think the women behind us are continuing to enter law school at a great rate, and now actually exceeding the number of men who are going to law school and coming into the workforce in equal numbers. I just think it's a numbers game, and eventually it'll be a tipping point.
Yeah, I hope you're right. I mean, I do look at the amazing progress we've made thus far, and sometimes it's hard to think about that, and unless you go to women's bar events and then you have these senior judges who talk about what it was like when they first came out, and they were one of 5 women in their law school class. I mean, those stories are amazing.
They're amazing, and when you think now, though, it's 38% of our judiciary currently is women. I mean,
that's great.
That's great. I mean, it was 9% not that long ago. Though, of course, for me, I'm like, okay, it's not 50% yet. It's not more than 50%, and the national average is 27%.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm. So we're lucky that we live in a state where that there's an emphasis on that.
Yeah.
But we could still keep going. And I think part of it is encouraging younger women to continue to see that as something that they need to work towards.
Yeah.
Right, and not to take it for granted. Because honestly, I refuse to admit that we're that old, so it hasn't been that long.
Right. No, I'm with you. Well, we're going to take a short break, and then we will be right back.
Here we go. What? What?
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent, because kids in foster care don't need perfection. They need you.
Welcome back to Making It Last, where we share ideas to help families tackle major issues. I'm your host, Regina DeMeo, and with me today is Heather Hostetter. And she's been an attorney for over 18 years here. She's a dear friend, and I'm so happy to have you here, Heather.
Thanks again.
So just briefly, I want to talk about Sheryl Sandberg's Lean In,
Sure.
Which was a big buzz during the summer. Some people, thought that she was, asking women to maybe do too much, or that she was not supportive of women that decide to stay home and give up their careers to raise their families. I didn't have those takeaways. I mean, I think she respects the fact, just like you and I do, that some women may have that wonderful option of staying home and being with their kids during their tender years. But we also see that for us, it's important to have a presence in these leadership roles and to continue to pave the way so that the next generation has it even a little bit easier than us. I mean, what did you think of her book?
So I had a similar reaction that you did. I thought her book was really trying to address a specific point, which is if you are going to continue to work, what you need to do in order to create a career, not just a job. And we, you and I have talked a little bit about the fact that my firm is comprised of all women attorneys. So
which is amazing.
Yes, so there's 6 of us. And really one of my goals for my associates is not just to ensure that they're providing excellent legal work, which of course is the number one goal, but also I really try and think about their careers. What are activities that you could be involved in our bar association or our community which allow people to see you, right, and see how competent you are and see you sort of, multi-levels, right, not just as a lawyer. That enables you to get business, right, and we know that that's one of the things that is valued in any business, not just that you can do the work, right, but that you can bring business in, and that, particularly in our legal community, I'm sure anybody watching the show, when they've needed a doctor or a lawyer or a dentist or a therapist, maybe peruse those lists that come out in Bethesda magazine or Washingtonian magazine. Part of how you get on those lists is that your peers know who you are. Right? And they know you to be doing a good job. And the way that they know that is they see you doing a good job in other contexts. And the other thing I think we have to do that I try and do as an employer is, most of the women in my office are of childbearing age. In fact, 2 of my associates are pregnant right now, which for a small firm is a big deal, right? Yeah. 2 of the 4 are going to be out on maternity leave, overlapping next year. But you know what? We have to make allowances for people to have lives, right? And you have to take the long view, I think, with respect to your employees. I want you to be here a long time, and so there are going to be years where you need to be more focused on your personal life. And that's something else I took from Cheryl's book, which is, she turned down a job to go to LinkedIn because she wanted to have a second child. Worked out just fine for her because that meant she was available to take the job at Facebook. Right? So some of it is saying to yourself, okay, what am I trying to accomplish, and when do I want to accomplish it by? It doesn't all have to happen, right, in the first 3 years that you're out of the box. But you also have to be paying attention to it. There's really not any moment in your career where you can just say, I'm finished.
Right.
There's nothing else I need to do.
Well, and, it's heartbreaking to see, in the divorce context, I'm sure you see it just as much as I do. There are these women who did take some sort of sacrifice to stay home with the family, and then there's a divorce, and now they have to go back into the workforce, and they've been out for 5 or 10 years, and they're having a really hard time. And, that's heartbreaking.
It is, and that's the thing. I wish somebody who, so Anne-Marie Slaughter, who wrote that article in the Atlantic Monthly, or Sheryl Sandberg, or even Liz Mundy, who used to work for the Washington Post, who's written books about related topics.
Yeah, The Richer Sex is the recent one.
Exactly. All these people, I want to say to them, interview the divorce attorneys, because the biggest message I would want to tell people is there is no more lifetime alimony for the majority of people who are going to receive it. And so, it is going to be difficult when you're in, what I really know are jobs, right, where it is very hierarchical. And so once you get off the conveyor belt, you're not going to get back in where you were. But yet, somehow, the legal profession, meaning the judiciary, expects you to be able to do that within relatively short order.
2 to 3 years.
2 to 3 years. So really I want to say to people, you would be providing for your own financial security and that of your children. Even if you're going to stay at home for some period of time, do something to stay current. Stay involved, for instance, in your bar association, right? Take on a leadership role in that, right? Do something, even work part-time. My partner, Amy Strent, for a number of years worked really, really, really reduced hours, but she never quit.
Right.
And then she came back in. Even though we graduated only 1 year apart in law school, I was the partner way before she was, but then she became one, and now here we are, 41 years old, we have our own firm, right? And she, no worse for the wear, and she got to do what she wanted to do. But part of that was because she kept one foot in the door.
Sure. I mean, that's what I did with my son. I had my son, and for 5 years when he was little, I only worked part-time. And 4 days a week I'd do my stuff, but, I had 3-day weekends with him, and I can never recoup that time. Like,
Right.
that's time that was so precious that we will always have. And now that he's in full-time school, I'm back to full-time work, and, I kept that foot in the door, which made it a lot easier.
A lot easier.
So there's other things that the Women's Bar Association does that I just want to touch on briefly. Like,
Sure.
One of them is your fall forum.
Yes. So one of the great things that the Women's Bar does is a lot of community outreach.
Yeah.
So we have a fall forum every year in which local Montgomery County high school students come for a day, and they get great practical advice about how to interview for a job, how to dress for a job interview, how to do a resume, how to do a cover letter, how to follow up, how to apply for school. I mean, if your parents potentially haven't shared this information with you yet, it's certainly not something you're going to get in high school, right? We're trying to make sure that you meet other academic objectives. So it's an excellent program. It's free for the students. So the women lawyers not only put on the program, solicit the speakers, solicit the high school's participation, they fundraise in order to ensure that it's free for the students to participate.
That's amazing.
We also fundraise for a scholarship. We have our own foundation, and we give scholarships every year to Montgomery County college students as well as local area law students in order to enable them to go to school. And I'll say that that's the favorite thing that I do every year. I mean, seeing these incredible women, particularly the MC students who come, who have, potentially no family support because they're immigrants here. They have 2 jobs. They're going to school full-time. They have A's, plus they volunteer. I mean, I always leave feeling like a slacker. What am I doing with my day?
That's how I felt. I remember I went to one of the ceremonies you guys had, and they had the people that received the scholarship speak briefly, and you're like listening to all the things they do, and they're like, how is that possible?
How is that possible? And then one of the things that I particularly am interested in, because I was a founding member of it, that I've been fortunate enough to have the Women's Bar support, is the Storybook Project.
Right. I love that.
Thank you. So our project has a very simple mission, which is there's one prison in the state of Maryland where anyone who's serving a sentence of more than 18 months goes. If your sentence is less than 18 months, you're probably at your local detention center. But the big house, the sort of people might think about it, the state prison, is in Jessup.
Okay.
And so we go there and we tape record inmates who are mothers reading a book to their children, and then we mail the children a CD of the recording plus the book.
So they can hear their mom's voice.
So they can hear their mom's voice. When I started getting involved in this project, I was amazed to find out that there are currently approximately 1.5 million children in the United States who have parents who are incarcerated.
Wow.
Yep. And 77% of women who are incarcerated are single mothers. So that's a lot of children who are without their primary caregiver for a sustained period of time. I mean, more than 18 months. And when you look at all the social science research on children who lose a primary caregiver to prison in particular, the propensity for the poverty cycle and the prison time cycle to be replicated is enormous. And I'm not saying that this little project is the cure for all social ills, but what I will say is that children maintaining contact with the person who is most important to them in their life has been shown to be very meaningful in terms of grounding that child, making that child feel like, that most important person is still thinking about them, still cares about what's happening to them. We let mom leave a message at the beginning of the story and at the end of the story.
Oh, wow.
And we've gotten really just such sweet and touching letters from the kids themselves or from the caretakers of the kids while mom is in prison. The great thing about it is the kid can listen to the CD, over and over. It's not a one-shot deal, right? They can bring it to school. For somebody who is potentially from Hagerstown, it's a far distance for Jessup. So, there's lots of, when I go to tape the mothers at prison, I always ask whether or not they see their child on visiting days, and the vast majority of them do not.
Oh,
because there aren't the resources to bring the children there, or the distance is too great. But it's really such a great thing. And I would say even to the level of watching some of these mothers struggle to read, right? A book that is not that complicated, right? And just the effort that is going into that, it's pretty amazing. And it's for the kids. I mean, no matter how you feel about people in prison and why they might be there, it's definitely not their kids' fault.
No, but I got hooked this summer on Orange is the New Black.
Okay.
So having never been to prison or known anybody that went to prison, it was very insightful. But I could see if there's no connection, like keeping you sort of in tune with what's going on outside that world, it could become quite devastating. You could become quite antisocial. You could learn some really bad habits and feel like you're no longer part of normal society. And when these women get out, if there is no ongoing connection, like how do they reintegrate back into this child's life and into our society? So I think it's more than just important for the kids. I'm not a psychologist, but I think it makes a lot of sense to give these women some hope that there's somebody out there that they're still connected to and that is longing for them to get out and maybe get to a better place.
No, and absolutely. And just because you've done something wrong in one other aspect of your life doesn't mean that you don't still want to be a good parent. Doesn't mean that you don't still love your child, right? And that you want what's best for them. And how disempowering to feel like when you're in jail, there's really nothing you can do about that. And so I think the women that I've met feel really good about feeling like there is at least something they can do. Right? Even when maybe there are no other options for them because of money, in terms of phone calling or visits.
So how do you raise money? Because I know that I usually get an email from you right around Mother's Day. Right? And you can give a donation, and then it's made in honor of whoever you want to donate to.
Yeah, our primary source of funding is once a year we have a Mother's Day fundraising campaign, and if people contact me and are willing to make a donation every year, the amount it has varied, but it's usually somewhere between $25 and $40. We'll send the mother of your choice a letter saying that you've honored them on Mother's Day by making a contribution to our project, and we explain something in the letter about what the project does.
Nice.
And it's really, every year we do better because there's so many people who come to me and say, I have to send this to my mother this year because now she's really counting on it. She loves this tradition.
Yeah.
So it's really, I think it's a great way to honor the mother in your life, right? One of the things I do is I send it to all of my friends who've become new mothers.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's great.
So how would people be able to make a donation if they wanted to?
Sure. So people could contact me at hhostetter@hostetterstrength.com or call me 301-657-0010, and I'd be happy to send them information. And I would love for you to do it and send a letter to the mom of your choice.
And could they also volunteer, maybe?
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. Yep. And we're always looking for new volunteers.
Yeah, I'd imagine you need people to go and
go. We go once a month. So, and we go once a month, and we send at least 2 people, sometimes 3. So, if people wanted to do it, it would be great. Yeah, and I think that anybody who's doing it would get a lot out of it.
Yeah, I want to do it.
You should do it. Come do it.
I want to see. Yeah. All right. Well, this has been great. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. Well, if you have any show ideas or would like to be a guest, please feel free to email me at genxmarty@gmail.com. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next week on Making It Last.